Canton, Georgia is an idyllic town surrounded by nature, lakes, lots of beautiful old trees, hiking trails, and green grass as far as the eye can see. But in the shadows, a mysterious figure breaks into a recently divorced woman's home and terrorizes her. To make the situation even more treacherous, the masked man uses a voice modulator that makes him sound like Batman. He leaves her bound, naked and scared, and then out of the darkness, a familiar face emerges. But turns out he's no knight in shining armor. I'm Jen. Thanks so much for being with us for another week of Two Crime Newsies.
Hi, Jen. I'm Tina.
Hi, Tina. This week, we're talking about a 48-hour show called Batman Intruder. Tina sent it to me, and I was like, you had me at the title, Batman Intruder.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, whoever is coming up with the episode titles for 48 hours is a clickbait genius.
So before we get into the episode, I just want to say that it might not be for some listeners. It's a different type of scary, I guess.
It's Lifetime movie scary, which we will talk about later.
That's a good way of putting it. I like it. And before we get started, I also want to say that we are sitting here with our coffee like we do every time we record. And I just want to say thank you to all those who have contributed to our coffee fund. It means the world to us. You are helping fuel our podcast. If you're not 100% sure what I'm talking about our buymeacoffee.com/2crimenewsies site, where you can make a small donation or a donation of your choosing to our coffee fund, because it fuels our podcast and keeps us going.
It literally does.
We need that caffeine. This week, we are talking about a 48-hour show, like Tina had mentioned. It's called Batman Intruder. It's season 38, episode 11, and it's narrated by a woman named Nikki Batiste.
When I hear Batman Intruder, I'm thinking, is this person dressed as Batman? Do they have Batman voice? What's going on here? And I can't wait to dive in.
They're wearing little tights.
Are they wearing tights, or is that Robin, or is that Batman, or is that both?
I mean, I'm assuming Batman probably has something underneath his like cape and outfit. Like, I mean, that's just me. I'm making that assumption. I was never really into the Batman movies. Like, I remember the Batman movie with George Clooney. Remember that one?
Yes.
I feel like out of all those, though, I'm probably going to get some hate on this, but that's the one that people don't enjoy very much. So I don't know. I'm not a Batman-y person.
I'm not a Batman-y person either. I remember mostly the cartoon. And one of the first lines in this show is a woman talking about the town and saying, citizens don't want to think monsters live amongst them. And Jen, last I checked, Batman was a superhero, not a monster.
Agreed.
So this is weird. And I'm so mad that someone is tarnishing Batman's name. And I'm not talking about this woman. I'm talking about Batman Intruder.
Tina's pissed off about
dare he tarnish Batman's good name? Batman was a good guy, am I wrong?
No, I think you're right. Batman was a good guy.
He fights crime.
Yes.
This guy does, he instigates crime. He does crime.
He's a bad guy.
He's a bad Batman.
So the show starts out with Morgan, who is this like gorgeous blonde, recently divorced mom of twin 8-year-old kids. It's New Year's Eve 2020 when Morgan and her friend Nicole decide to ring in the new year at Nicole's house with a glass of wine. Sounds super relaxing, super chill. She's had a tough year getting divorced, and she just wants a quiet evening hanging out with her friend. And they plan to keep it super low-key. But Morgan ended up leaving earlier than expected and went home because she was tired.
That sounds like you.
It does sound like me. I would totally just go home and I'm sorry, it's close to midnight. Like
Not even. I don't think you even last till midnight.
Yeah. The bed is calling me and I want to go to sleep.
Realistically, it sounds like both of us. A couple drinks at home, 9 p.m. rolls around, and we're ready for PJs and bed.
You make it to 9?
Oh, yeah, I'll make it to 9. Sometimes 10.
Hey. So I live in a cul-de-sac and the neighbors all like hang out in the front yard, and one of my direct next door neighbor always makes fun of me because I don't make it to double digits. I don't.
You don't even, not even 9:30?
Yeah, potentially. But I mean, we're talking if it's a wild Friday night, like I'll make it to like 9:45.
Well, you're at least outside of your house. I don't like to be outside of my house after dark. I'll go somewhere if I can get my husband to go with me. Otherwise, I prefer to be at home. And I think we would get along with Morgan because she didn't even stay up for the ball drop and fireworks. Sleep, she said, was calling her name. So she and her little pug called it a night. And she was home alone because her kids were visiting her sister in Florida. So just her and her pug going to bed together.
Super chill night.
I like it.
I like it too. Morgan says she shut the house down for the night and went to bed, as Tina had mentioned. And she woke up shortly before midnight because of fireworks popping off in the distance. And she ended up falling back asleep. But it wasn't a night for sweet dreams. Morgan was woken up in the early morning hours of January 1st to a figure standing in her bedroom doorway. As if in a horror movie, she lay terrified, staring straight at a male figure dressed all in black with a mask covering his face.
Morgan says her eyes flung open, and it was as if she sensed someone there, a presence. And this is everyone's nightmare, I think. Mm-hmm. Seeing a man standing in your room or outside your window. I hate to look at my windows at night.
Same. I make it a point, like I close all curtains, I close all blinds, just because I'm like, I don't want to see what's on the outside of that window.
Like a shadow. There was one time where there was a shadow of my lawn chair in my window. I freaked out.
A shadow of your lawn chair.
Yep.
I love it.
Morgan says this guy was standing there like a soldier, and she could see that he had his fists clenched and he was ready to attack. And then he runs at her.
Oh, heck no. I mean, what at that point, what can you do?
I don't know if I would have time to react.
I don't think so. Morgan says she screamed. At least she screamed.
That's true.
And that's when he jumped on her and hit her with a gun and began beating her. But that was not it at all.
The guy rolled her over and used zip ties like handcuffs as he bound her wrists together.
That's like the kind of books that I read.
Oh,
like,
oh my God.
You know how I like my spicy books? Like, that's the kind of books I read.
Do they use zip ties?
Sometimes.
Wow.
I'm just saying. So Morgan said that her attacker told her, "You're going to regret this. You've done really wrong now." And to make it even more scary, Morgan says her attacker sounded like Batman.
I think of Batman as having this really low voice, like a growl,
You're
low
gonna
growl.
regret this.
Hey, that's not bad.
I could be a stand-in for Batman. Just the sound though, clearly not the
We
look.
should have gotten a voice changer for this episode.
Add to cart.
I think Batman has an intimidating tone. Definitely not a friendly voice.
Morgan says Batman then continued to pistol whip her and strangled her nearly unconscious twice, and then sexually assaulted her.
We see a picture of Morgan after the attack. One of her eyes is severely bruised. Her eye is a deep purple. It looks painful. And Morgan says she thought she was going to die during the attack, and her mind is racing. She says it was like having 50,000 tabs open all at once in her head. I get that because look at all the tabs open on my computer.
You have tons of tabs. Holy moly, Tina. There's like 30. Tina. What what?
I need them readily accessible at all times so I can just click over. Anyway, I know how this feels. She feels like she has all these tabs open in her brain. And she says she felt vulnerable and exposed. I feel exposed now that you saw my tabs. She also says she's worried about her kids, wondering what will happen to them, remembering she didn't have a will, and she didn't know where her children would go without a mom.
That's so sad.
She's also replaying moments of her life and trying to figure out why this is happening to her. Then we hear the narrator, Nikki, ask, who would want to do this to Morgan? And Morgan said at first she had no idea during the attack who the man was. She thought at the time it was a random person.
We hear that Batman wore a black hoodie jacket, black pants, and black gloves. And to disguise his voice, he used a modulator, making it sound low and gravelly, just like Batman in the movie. But that wasn't all. Morgan says her attacker knew a lot about her. And during the attack, Batman also demanded to know where Morgan kept her valuables. He even asked for her phone.
He asked for the password to her phone as well. And then we find out that Morgan had an alarm system in the house that she set before going to bed that night. And we also learn that she can control the alarm, the security cameras around her house, and an electronic door lock at her back door, all with an app on her phone. And she says that she heard this guy unlock the back door with her phone, which I think is a giant red flag.
Agreed.
How does he even know he can do this?
It's as if he knows the house.
Mm-hmm.
Before leaving, Morgan says Batman put a pillowcase over her head and then led her onto the back porch of her house and left her, but not before giving her a warning.
He tells her not to get up until she hears 2 car honks, or else he's going to kill her. So she stood frozen on the porch, afraid to move, terrified that he was watching her.
And this is December, or actually January 1st now, in Georgia. It's cold.
Definitely cold. And we also learn that Morgan doesn't live in a typical neighborhood with houses right next door to each other. So her house is kind of hidden by trees. There are no neighbors close enough to be able to see or hear what's going on.
Morgan simply stood on this porch, naked for what seemed like an eternity, until she says about 40 minutes later, she heard someone walking, inching closer to her. They're at the bottom of the stairs. Then they're making their way up the stairs. Thump, thump, as footsteps come closer to a terrified Morgan. Whoever it was hit the last step on the way up the stairs, and Morgan heard the step creak, a sound she knew well. That meant the person was standing only feet away from her.
Morgan thinks this is the end for her, that this guy came back to kill her.
But thankfully, it was not Batman. It was her ex-husband, Rod Metzger.
At this point, it has to be around 2 a.m. What is this guy doing at Morgan's house at this hour? Red flag.
Rod immediately called 911, and we hear part of the call on the episode, and you can hear the absolute terror in Rod's voice. He tells the dispatcher that someone broke into Morgan's house, and he found her on the back porch, and that the back door was wide open. And Rod goes on to tell the dispatcher that Morgan was tied up with a hood over her head.
In the background, while Rod is talking with the dispatcher, you can hear Morgan wailing in the background, and it's awful. She's begging Rod not to leave her, and you can hear him consoling her, telling her he's there, he's not leaving.
Sergeant Dakota Liver of the Cherokee County Sheriff's Department wanted to know right away, why was Rod Metzger, Morgan's ex-husband, visiting her in the middle of the night? I think it's a question we all want to know.
Sergeant Liver says Rod was living in an apartment 12 minutes away from Morgan's house at the time this all happened.
So Sergeant Liver interviewed Rod Metzger, and Rod Metzger had said that he had been brushing his teeth earlier in the night when he heard someone knocking on his apartment window. And that's when he heard someone say the name Morgan. And Rod Metzger says that he grew concerned about Morgan. And that's when he decided to run by Morgan's house to make sure she was okay. It's like he's sounding like a knight in shining armor there.
First off, if someone is saying something from outside your house and you're inside, you don't just say, Morgan. You have to yell, Morgan! Am I wrong?
No, I mean, I don't think your lawn chair outside was doing much yelling, but
That's true, but I mean, I can't have a conversation with my husband while I'm inside, he's outside.
That's true.
For it to be heard from the inside, that has to be really loud. I think it's super suspicious. Rod tells investigators he called Morgan after allegedly hearing someone say her name through his window, but she didn't answer.
Despite being divorced, Rod still looked after Morgan, is what we hear on the show.
We do find out that Rod and Morgan had a 20-year relationship. They met when they were young. Morgan says she was 14, Rod was 17, and Morgan says it was love at first sight, and that Rod was amazing, treated her well, even called her princess. And they got married in 2009 when Morgan was 21.
That's young.
Very young. And we see footage from their wedding. Both look so young, and it looked like a beautiful ceremony. And Morgan says it was everything she dreamed of, and that the beginning of their marriage was great. But not long after their marriage, the couple suffered 2 devastating losses. Rod's younger brother died from leukemia 8 months after their marriage. And then a few months later, another shock when Morgan and Rod's first child is born with a heart defect and dies just 18 days after he's born. But there is hope on the horizon, because a few months later, the couple find out they're expecting again. And this time, not just one baby, but 2. The twins, a boy and a girl, are born healthy in 2012.
But their relationship hit a rocky patch about a year after the twins were born. Rod lost his job working as a day trader right about the same time that Morgan's career started to boom. She had started her own interior design business, and all of her success, we hear, was wearing on the family.
It should have been a happy time. Morgan's business is doing well. She had to hire help, so she got her best friend Nicole to join the business, and Nicole says it was great. They were working hard and doing what they loved.
They were having fun, getting to hang out with each other and working every day.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, right? Oh, love you, Tina.
Love you too. But the narrator, Nikki, tells us that Morgan's success and Rod's lack of success wasn't good. It was a recipe for disaster.
Morgan says Rod started to abuse her, both physically, sexually, and mentally. And Morgan also says that Rod was gaslighting her to make her believe she was in fact the problem, making her think that every conflict that Rod instigated actually was her fault. And at this point, it was 2020, and Morgan had enough, and she filed for divorce. And it was finalized in December of that year, just days before Batman attacked her inside her house. And Rod showed up miraculously to save her. Sergeant Livers and Sergeant Robert Hawk, who were amongst the first to arrive at Morgan's house the night of the attack, say they thought Rod's behavior was very odd.
Sergeant Livers describes his first encounter with Rod, and it does sound a bit bizarre. Sergeant Livers says normal behavior would be when you call for help arrives, and then you're usually relieved and welcoming to authorities because they're there to help you. In Rod's case, he sounded angry when they showed up. Sergeant Livers says one of the first things Rod tells him is to do his effing job.
How rude.
Which sounds a little aggressive to me.
Yeah, they're there to help. Investigators say they were shocked Morgan's appearance when they saw her. And as Tina mentioned, we see pictures of her from the night of the attack, and they show her sitting on what looks to be like a fireplace stoop, wearing a baggy t-shirt and some sweatpants. And in the picture, she has the black zip tie still around her left hand, and she has a very, very large black eye, and her eye and face are so swollen. She is unrecognizable from the woman that we see later on in the interview. And her eye was swollen so much, in fact, that it looks like Morgan can't even open it all the way.
Investigators say this looked like an emotional attack. Someone was angry. And we also learned that Morgan called her father and her brother after the attack, so they are both also at Morgan's house while investigators are trying to piece together what happened. So investigators pull each one aside to get their stories.
So Morgan was separated from her ex-husband and interviewed by Sergeant Livers inside her house. Now, the interview was recorded, and we hear a portion of it on the show. Morgan told police she suspected her ex-husband Rod. She said she didn't know who her attacker was when it started, but Morgan says that during her attack, the perpetrator had told her that she was going to miss her husband very much, to which Morgan had responded, "Don't hurt my husband, I love him very much."
Morgan says when she said those words, everything changed. The attacker's mood shifted, and she suddenly felt like she might survive this whole ordeal. And Morgan's husband is outside of the house while she's being interviewed, so he can't hear what she's saying. But her words are a red flag. Morgan was alone at the time. A random person wouldn't know she had a husband unless they knew her. Also, what a shocking revelation for her. She's been attacked, beaten, thought she was going to die at one point. Her ex-husband out of nowhere shows up and calls for help. She's crying, naked, vulnerable, confused on why this is all happening. This has to be beyond traumatic.
Morgan said she also thought it was her ex-husband Rod when, during the attack, he had lifted her out of bed to take her outside to put her on the porch.
Because she remembers a time when her ex-husband had picked her up when she was pregnant, and she says it felt the same way. The way the attacker held her felt the way her ex-husband did years before. So she's putting together all the pieces of the puzzle now. She knows it's him, but she pretends she doesn't because she doesn't know what he will do to her if she lets on that she knows Batman is her husband.
Morgan said the attack happened at the end of a super chaotic week. Earlier that week, Rod had called her and told her that he had pancreatic cancer. She felt sorry for him, so Morgan opened up her heart and her house to Rod and let him sleep on her sofa because she didn't want him to be alone.
And we hear that he even showed her doctor's notes about his diagnosis and that he didn't tell anyone else about it, only Morgan.
I think that's a red flag.
Absolutely.
Tell his mom.
His parents would be one of the first to know, I would think.
Yeah.
If he had any sort of close relationship with them,
Not
which
your
it sounds like
ex-wife.
he did. Morgan says she was overwhelmed knowing she was the only person who knew that he was sick, and she insisted Rod tell his parents. She needed him to lean on his family for emotional support as well. And Rod refused to tell anyone else, which pushes Morgan further away.
Morgan said during the week Rod had tried several times to reconcile with her, but she had no interest in getting back together. And on the morning of December 31st, New Year's Eve, Morgan had enough and told Rod to get out of her house. But that wasn't enough for Rod. He spent the day texting Morgan and also harassing her. And Morgan wasn't sure the police would believe her, and that's when Sergeant Livers validated her beliefs that Rod was to blame.
We hear that most people wouldn't suspect Rod of carrying out an attack like this, but Sergeant Livers did. We find out that Morgan earlier in the night told Rod via text that she was staying at her parents' house. So there wasn't any reason for Rod to have gone to Morgan's house. If anything, he should have shown up to Morgan's parents' house.
Yep.
Where she said she was going to be. When questioned about this, Rod simply says he went to Morgan's house out of habit.
That sounds suspect to me.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Rod was sitting outside of Morgan's house and was being questioned by police. So she's inside with police, he's outside with police. And he told them that he was worried about Morgan when he heard the knock on the window of his apartment and heard someone say Morgan's name. He claimed that before going to her house, he tried to call her, but she didn't answer. And in doorbell video from Morgan's house, we can see Rod handing police his cell phone. And when investigators checked the phone out, they discovered naked pictures of Morgan in his hidden folder. And that may not sound too shocking, a husband having naked pictures of his wife, but Rachel Ash, who is the assistant DA for Cherokee County, says that the pictures look like they have been taken of Morgan without her knowing that she was having her picture taken.
There's a hidden folder?
Apparently so.
We need to find where the hidden folder is. Authorities considered the photos an invasion of privacy, And we see video of one of the investigators bluntly telling Rod these photos that he has are stalkerish. They are not okay. And Rod replies that people make mistakes. The investigator responds with, "You made a lot of mistakes." Agreed.
Yeah. At this point, police arrest Rod Metzer for taking secret naked pictures of Morgan.
And now they have to find proof that Rod was Batman, that he attacked Morgan. They do have a theory. They believed Rod was trying to be her savior, to win her back when he showed up at her house in the middle of the night.
With Rod Metzer in jail, investigators turned to Morgan's home security video system for answers, but quickly found out that all the video from that evening had been erased through her cell phone app. And remember, Morgan's attacker had taken her cell phone with him.
And Morgan's cell phone, we find out, was never found. And all those home security videos never recovered, because once they're deleted, we find out the videos are also deleted from the cloud.
Now the question was, how did Batman get inside her house with her having a security system? And turns out he got in through a basement window that had an alarm sensor that wasn't installed properly.
Well, look at that. Batman found the one window that didn't have the alarm sensor installed properly. Who would have known?
And investigators believe that Rod had disabled it when he was staying at Morgan's house earlier that week. And turns out surveillance video showed Rod had been at Morgan's house earlier the night of her attack.
Right. The attacker erased surveillance video from during the attack, but not from before. So we see video of Rod putting something underneath a chair cushion on Morgan's front porch. And we find out it was a check. And investigators believe he was trying to get her to come home and retrieve the check after he was told she would be staying at her parents' house. And it turns out the attacker also took the check with him when he left Morgan's house, and that check was never found.
How would he know that check is there?
Batman took the check.
Yeah, how would random Batman, if Batman is a, Joe Schmo off the street, know that that check is there?
Exactly. Another interesting tidbit, according to investigators, Rod was broke, so the check would have bounced if Morgan cashed it.
The next day, police served a search warrant on Rod's apartment. And as soon as they entered the unit, they found a package of opened black zip ties laying on the floor. And remember, Morgan had been zip tied, and there was something very unique about Morgan's zip ties.
There sure was. So one of the zip ties used on Morgan looked like the attacker had looped 2 other ties to it and then cut the tails off.
Yeah, I didn't understand this. Why all those loops and
I'm assuming he made mistakes. So he was trying to loop them and then cut it off. You know what I mean? Like he was trying a few times to get his handcuffs the way he wanted them to.
He's not the smartest cookie in the bunch.
But apparently not, because theoretically the tails should be somewhere, maybe still in the attacker's home, and investigators indeed found zip tie tails in Rod's apartment.
I literally right now I'm like speechless. I'm just like, dude. Like that's what I have to say. Dude. Turns out the crime lab matched the zip ties that were used on Morgan.
Not just a match, a perfect match.
We're told on the show there was even more evidence against Rod at his apartment. Investigators say they found a book titled 7 Ways to Be Her Hero. They also discovered some very telling evidence in his computer browsing history.
7 ways to be a hero.
No, not just a hero.
Her hero. There's no way this Batman scenario was in that book. I refuse to believe it.
Yeah, I don't think it is either.
We also learned Rod, as you said, had incriminating search history on his computer. Things like how to change your voice, how long to choke someone unconscious, how to crack an iPhone password, how to get sympathy from your ex, and to search for a cancer letter from a hospital.
That's so bad.
We also find out the paperwork that Rod showed Morgan to prove his cancer diagnosis wasn't real. So Rod didn't have pancreatic cancer.
He was just trying to weasel his way back into her life.
Just like how to get sympathy from your ex.
I wonder if that was in the book.
That could have been on Google.
Ugh. So on January 3rd, 2 days after the attack, we see interrogation video between Sergeant Livers, another investigator named Sergeant Harris, and Rod Metzer. Rod sits across from the investigators wearing an orange jumpsuit.
Interrogation video is always fascinating.
They asked Rod about his health issues, to which he responds, "Nothing as far as I know of yet." To which Livers responds, "I thought you had pancreatic cancer." And Rod Metzger responds and says he doesn't think he should keep talking to them because he has a bad feeling about the angle they're getting at.
Well, at least his spidey senses are working.
His Batman senses aren't working, but his spidey senses are. Police at this point asked Rod about why he searched how you can change the sound of your voice on his computer. To which Rod answers, "Maybe I felt like my voice wasn't manly enough."
I don't know if I would say Batman's voice is manly. It's more strange.
No. Investigators then ask about the zip ties that were found inside Rod's apartment, to which Rod Metzer says he doesn't have any black zip ties. And I'm going to quote here. The interview is getting, quote, squirrely.
What a word.
I know. Squirrely.
It's getting squirrely in here.
Police don't let up and keep going about the zip ties, saying how the cut on the zip tie on Morgan's restraints is a perfect match to the piece at his apartment. To which Rod responds that there's something funny going on here because he didn't have any big blank zip ties in his apartment. And the word that I blanked is another word for butt or behind.
Donkey.
Donkey. Yes, donkey.
He didn't have any big donkey zip ties.
Clean rating for our podcast.
At this point, Rod tells investigators, "Y'all are making me feel like you think I did this."
Yeah.
Sir, you're wearing an orange jumpsuit in an interrogation room. What is your first clue? I cannot.
Yeah. At this point, Rod Metzer was charged with home invasion, kidnapping, aggravated assault, and sexual battery.
Charged with a total of 10 counts.
And at that point, the evidence kept on coming against Rod Metzer. Police went to a local Lowe's store in Canton and found surveillance video of Rod buying those zip ties. You know, the zip ties that he can't remember having in his house. He must have amnesia the day he bought them or something.
Not just amnesia. He bought zip ties during COVID. Remember COVID when everyone was wearing COVID masks?
Yep.
We see in the video from Lowe's, most people are wearing COVID masks, but not Rod, which gives investigators a very clear image of his entire face. Way to go.
Next came the security video from Rod's own apartment building, which recorded him coming home after the time of Morgan's attack had happened, looking all disheveled, wearing red sneakers, black or like a dark colored pair of pants, a white t-shirt, and a black hoodie pulled over his head, walking into the building in a hurry. He had a fire lit on him. He was huffing along.
He had a pep in his step.
That's what I was going to say hoofing it along, but yeah, pep in the step I think sounds better. Then 4 minutes later, Rod is caught again on that same camera, leaving the building wearing a change of clothes. He's wearing a blue sweater, dark colored shoes, and dark pants, and is carrying a plastic bag.
And we never find out what's in the plastic bag or where it went, but investigators think it held evidence that he threw away somewhere. But the evidence investigators had already was more than they needed to prove Rod committed this Batman crime.
On August 4th, 2021, Rod pled guilty to 14 counts related to Morgan's attack and the photos of her that investigators found on his phone. And he was sentenced to serve 25 years in prison and then serve 45 more years on probation after he's released. And at his sentencing, Morgan had a chance to face her attacker, who also was her ex-husband.
Morgan reads a small portion of the statement for 48 hours, and in it, she tells Rod that living with him the last few years of their marriage was like living with a monster. She goes on to say that she can walk with confidence, knowing the pain he gave to her she turned into power. And Morgan says she felt like 1,000-pound weight was lifted off her shoulders after she read her statement to Rod.
Rod reportedly has type 1 diabetes, and his health is rapidly declining, we hear on the show, while behind bars. And thankfully, as part of his sentencing, Rod Metzer is not allowed to contact Morgan and their children in any way at all. Meanwhile, if you want to know more about the case, Lifetime has done a movie about Morgan's life, and it's called Gaslit by My Husband. And you can find it on Lifetime. I think Lifetime has an app. And on Prime Video.
I think that's a great find, Jen, and I'm going to add that to my watch list, but maybe not for a few more weeks because those Lifetime movies really stick with me. Some of them are truly terrifying.
Some of them are. I like a good Hallmark movie, like the Hallmark Christmas movie. That's more my jam.
Some of them are so good that I have remembered them decades later, and even I have gone and searched for documentaries about these movies that we can talk about on this podcast.
I like it. Well, if you have any suggestions on shows that you would like us to cover, shoot us a message on Instagram, on Facebook. You can send us an email to crimenewsies@gmail.com. And if you love our podcast, help fuel our podcast, you can do that by visiting buymeacoffee.com/2crimenewsies.
There's also a link to buy me a coffee on our website, 2crimenewsies.com. And hey, while you're at it, why don't you leave us a 5-star review? If you haven't done so yet, please go now to your podcast app, leave us a 5-star review, and if you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend.
Share it with a friend. And then before we get going, I also just want to say that if you or anyone you know is the victim of domestic violence, there is help out there for you. I'm going to put a link to some sources at the bottom of our show notes. Just remember, there is always help out there, and people care about you. We care about you.
We sure do.
And
I care about you.
I care about you too. Well, I feel
that's
like
enough mushy business.
I know. I feel like I made that sad, but I'm sorry.
Okay.
All right, everyone. Well, we will talk to you guys again next week. Thank you so much for being with us, and we will talk to you then.